We apologise for Jez's poor audio quality during the recording of this episode.
Hey, I am Wally.
And I'm Jez, and on next week's episode, we are going to review the practice games that have just taken place over the past few days, and we will preview opening round. But first...
Yes, but first, on We Should Run the AFL, the professionalism continues, and we have a very professional special guest this week. We're Andrew Jobling. Jobbers, welcome to We Should Run the AFL.
Woo!
Well, it's great to be here, boys, and I am impressed with your professionalism so far. And I just have to apologise to the listeners because I heard Jezza saying in the last episode, "Get ready, get excited, we've got a guest," and sorry that it's me. But this is it? This is all you could find? What's going on, boys? I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
No, we went straight to the top of the barrel, Jobbers.
Awesome.
It's all downhill from after this.
Well, we'll have a laugh. That's the main thing. And you've convinced me to wear a cap backwards as well.
Exactly. And you're a bit of a podcast superstar yourself, so you would know all about professionalism.
Wait a minute.
There we go.
There you go.
Puzzle. Tune in. It's actually a fantastic podcast for everyone listening. Check it out. It's really good.
Well, you've been a guest several times, haven't you?
I have, and it's great fun and listen to it regularly. And there's some pretty fascinating people you get on there. It was all uphill from me, basically.
Well, the one thing I know, Wally, when I talk to you, we laugh.
Exactly.
We may talk a lot of shit, but we laugh.
And that will hopefully continue tonight.
Oh,
Exactly.
I've got a gut feeling that it will.
You think?
Yep.
All right, Jez, start us off.
Yeah, let's get stuck into it. So, Jobbers, is there a
Yes.
call you that?
Jobbers, please call me Jobbers.
And
Jezza.
both our listeners as well. Great. So, we were wondering if you could take us back to your very first day playing AFL or VFL football back in the day. I believe it was for St Kilda Football Club. What it was like walking into the club for the first time. Like what happens on the first day back in the 80s and how did you feel and emotions, everything, anything you can think of in relation to that.
If you can.
Okay, well, this is going to be short because that's over 40 years ago, mate, and I'm 60 now, so my memory's shot. But it was a beautiful sunny day. The sky was blue. Look, do you know what? It was. I just remember. This is what I remember because I was 16 years old, and for I don't know 4 or 5 years that'd been my dream. I'm going to be a footballer. I mean, that's it. No. Totally illogical idea, if I'm being honest, because I was not that talented and I was a skinny little weed. But I thought, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it big. And I just remember the day where I got a letter. I remember the letter. I opened this letter that invited to come and train at St Kilda. And for those young people listening, this is way, way, way before a draft scenario where you go in the draft. This was basically based on where you lived. I lived in Beaumaris at the time, and that was in the St Kilda zone, so it was St Kilda. So yeah, look, to be honest, Jez, I really can't remember walking into the club for the first time, but I do remember just being in awe. I was excited, I was shit scared, I was it's just one of those, it was a dream for so long, and when you work hard for something and finally you think potentially a dream might happen. Yeah, it was a pretty special feeling. And then walking into the rooms and then seeing all these guys that are, the Trevor Barkers and the Jeff Cunninghams and some of those footballers that, were legends. And I just did. I think the first thing was I didn't feel like I fit in. I thought, what am I doing here, for goodness sake? So, but it was, it was pretty special.
Love that. And Jez, I'm going to skip around a little bit, so we'll have to keep track of the questions. But it was a great. We were going to ask about that because you did play with some pretty legendary players back then, and as you said, you walked in and felt a bit of felt in awe and that you didn't belong. And I know a lot of players these days, you see, we follow Collingwood, and you see the draftees going, I get to play and train with Scott Pendlebury, and he's a legend of the game, and you had a few of them there, Plugger and all these guys, and what do you reckon it was, or is there anything that you saw in them that made them stand out? Was it just a natural ability? Was it work ethic? Was it something else?
Yes.
Excellent. Next question.
It was all of the above. I mean, look, blokes like Trevor Barker he was just naturally talented. And honestly, I'm thinking, well, if that's the criteria, then there's no chance I'm going to last very long. But then blokes like Jeff Cunningham, who was a great footballer, but couldn't kick very well, and was a battler, but he was tough as nails, and he's just one of these most courageous blokes. So I think every player of those senior players, they just had something about them, whether it was uncanny. Silvio Fascini, for example, just was able to kick goals out of his backside from anywhere, and just guys like Danny Frawley, who was just solid, just always dependable, and every player had this different skill. Some of them had that natural ability, and others didn't. But it just proved to me, and the fact that I was able to make it and play the time that I did just proved to me that natural ability was probably not up there as the key criteria to be a successful athlete. There's more about effort and more about work ethic and more about attitude, more about willingness to get up when you get knocked down and willingness to keep showing up when you doubt yourself and you don't know whether you can make it. And I think for me, that was the key to me being there for as long as I did. It was just that willingness to just keep going when I keep missing selection and keep struggling and keep doubting myself, and just go, okay, just keep showing up and keep working, and one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to get sacked or you're going to get a game, right? Like they're the only two options. But if I quit, which trust me was a regular thought, I knew if I gave up, then all chances are gone. So I thought, no, just hang in there and see what happens, and just shows the power of persistence, hey?
Exactly. And what a great lesson for not just footy, but everything else as well, really.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's some pretty key lessons. I mean, before we started recording, I talked about my first senior level game of footy. So, I'd been in the club a year or so, and I'd been in the under 19s, and I got first. It was a reserve grade game. Again, they don't have reserve these days. It's VFL now.
Yep.
So I played my first, what would be equivalent of a VFL game on a Sunday, and it was televised. So they've televised one game a week, one reserve grade game a week on the Army Reserve or Statewide Cup, whatever it was back then. And I just remember, like, that game, I was so excited. And I got out into the ground in the first quarter. I'm just basically watching blokes run around, and just the difference between under 19s and senior grade was just miles apart. And I just felt so out of place. And it finally got through the first quarter, got into the second quarter. I'm starting to feel a bit more comfortable. And the ball comes down towards me, and it was a high one. And I'm looking, and here's me looking up at the ball, hands up, and not protecting myself at all, not knowing that there was a Geelong player steaming towards me with his eyes on one thing and one thing only, and that was my head. And he jumped. He hit me with his hip. The next thing I knew, I was in hospital. And I've got the video, which I play all the time. I use it all the time in talks that I do about this. When you get knocked down in life, you've got a choice: you either give up or you get up. And it was such a memory of, okay, I've got a choice here. Do I give up because my parents wanted me to give up? For sure, I'm 17 years old at this point. My parents want me to give up. I'm in a hospital, and doctors and nurses are telling me to give up because effectively they said, you're an idiot, mate. What are you doing? Look at you, you're skinny. You're not equipped. You give up. What are you doing? And so I had all this pressure on me to give up, but I had a dream and I had a vision, and so I decided to get up. And that's the other lesson. One of the key lessons is you're going to get knocked down either physically or symbolically, metaphorically, whatever it's going to be. We're going to get knocked down verbally, emotionally, and it's just that lesson: just get up and go again. And so grateful for the experience, grateful for the ambulance ride, grateful for...
That's great.
What about remember?
So that was your reserves. What about your senior debut?
Okay, so all right, so here's what happened. So that was 1982. That reserve game was 1982. So I played a couple of reserves grade games, 82. And then 1983 came along, and I can't believe we're talking about 1983. Wait, it's just only 40 2 years ago. My
Nothing.
gosh.
I wasn't even born.
So the whole year, right? I pretty much played reserves the whole year, and the coach was Tony Jewell at the time, and I started playing good footy. I started getting used to it, and I was loving it and doing well, and every week what happens on a Thursday night is after training you sit in the room and the coaching team go off and put the team together, and they come out and they read out the team on a Thursday night. And after about sort of halfway through that year, I thought, okay, I've got to be a chance here. Got to be a chance. And Tony Jewell said to me, yeah, jobbers, keep going. You're close. You're close. The amount of times I heard you're close. If I had $1 for every time I heard I'm close, I wouldn't be working anymore. I'd be well and truly retired. And so Thursday night comes and I'm looking directly at him, and he's avoiding all kind of eye contact with me, and I missed selection, and it finally got to the last game of 1983, the last game, and that was versus Collingwood at Victoria Park. Thursday night, I'm sitting there going, this has got to be it. I'm looking at him, eye contact again, no eye contact. He goes through the team, and my name's not mentioned. I thought, had my little dummy spit tantrum because what was this is, what do I say, 83, so I'm 19 years old. No, not even, I'm still 18 years old, and I'm just not emotionally mature at all. Done stupid club and stupid coach and stupid this and stupid that and blah. And so I was playing in the obviously in the reserves on the Saturday. I get a phone call at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Saturday morning, and it was Tony Jewell. Jobbers, had some injuries, you're in. And I'll go, oh, what? So all of a sudden, now I'm excited, terrified, and I had no time really to think about it. I just had to go, okay, well, actually, I didn't have to get to the ground quite as early because I was playing the reserve, so that was okay. So I'm running around the house, jumping and screaming and yelling, waking the household up because I was living at home at the time. So, coming into the room with the seniors, right, and getting trained with the seniors, and just thinking, I'm a senior footballer. I thought, wow, this is special, and blokes coming up, okay, good on you, Jobbers, well done, and da-da-da. And for those of you that have ever been to Victoria Park back in the 80s, you'll know it is a very pro-Collingwood. It's not a friendly environment. I remember running out onto the ground through the race in the cage, and it's not. It was a blue sky. I'm thinking, what's that? Is it rain? And I'm looking up. No, that's saliva.
Probably Wally's.
I wasn't born, remember?
And finally ran out of the ground. I played on the first half the first half I sat on the bench. Got up a few times to go for a jog around the boundary, keep warm, and as I did, I heard myself being, I won't use the words, the names that I was being called, and I turned around and look, and it was, elderly women, no teeth, abusing me. I'm thinking, okay, well, that sounds like Collingwood supporters to me. So I ended up getting on the ground in the second half, and I think I had 3 touches and did nothing, but that was my first senior game. And then 83 ended, and I thought, right, I mean, that's it, I've made it, I've started. And 1984 starts, and I just expected, right, well, I trained hard over the preseason, expected I'm a regular player now, and I missed selection the first game, the second game. How many games are there? 22? I missed selection for 22 games straight. And again, this is a real key. This is the biggest probably lesson that I learned. And there's so many times when I just felt like giving up, and the dummy spit when I was getting best on ground in the reserves week after week after week, and you close jobbers, keep going, keep working. You say it one more time, and I'm going to smack you in the face. And every game, I missed selection, and and honestly, at the end of that year, I thought, well, maybe I'm just not up to it. But again, in my head, I said, jobbers, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. So trained pre-season for 85. Coaches changed. So Tony Jewell went. Yay, hooray. Graham Jelly started coaching. And again, I thought, well, have a look what I've done in the last year. So I thought I'd be in. And again, I think it was about the first 5 or 6 games of 85 I missed selection. And then finally, I think it was about round 7 or 8. In 85, I played my second game. It was about 18 months after my first game. And I was one of the best on ground. And I look back and I go, well, there's a couple of things here. That persistence and that just willingness to keep showing up and keep getting better and keep improving. But the other thing was, I know when looking back at that first game, I was not prepared. I was not equipped to be a senior footballer at that time. I needed that 18 months to get more mentally and physically prepared to build my skills and my strength and all kinds of stuff. And so that second game pretty much launched, and then I played pretty regularly for the next couple of years. And yeah.
Love it. And it's just such a good lesson as well of that thing where we have a dream. And again, for everyone listening, like, you have a dream, you go for it, you reach it, and then you think, oh, that's it, I'm flying now. But then for the next 18 months, you're not there again. And so it's really, you do get those little knockbacks, and then you get back, you keep working, you get back, but you're at a different level when you get back. So you can actually take advantage of it. And then you play it from memory. This might be wrong just from our chats, about 80 odd games. Is that right?
Well, I played more than 80 at the club, not senior games. So I played 20. I played 24 senior games. So okay, 24, nearly 80. We'll go with 80.
Well, 80 all up. 80 all up. And then you get to your last game, and you play your last game, and what ends up, you're going to leave the club. And was that like on your terms? Did you expect it? Was it sooner than you expected? How did that all happen? Yeah, like when you stopped playing footy.
Really? Okay.
Oh, we don't have to talk about
tell this tragic story as well. My gosh, I've got lots of tragic St Kilda stories. All right,
this is the last one. This is the last one.
Doesn't tragic and St Kilda go together anyway?
And look, you got to understand St Kilda. St Kilda Footy Club back in the 80s was and apologies to anyone. No, I don't apologise. This is the reality. It was a very toxic workplace. It was toxic. It was abusive. I mean, here's the example. I was at the club for 7 years. There was 4 senior coaches in 7 years. Wow. I mean, what kind of stability would you call that? And these coaches will put on, it's a 5-year plan. Yep, we've got a 5-year plan. And after 2 years, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
So there's no chance for the club to get into any kind of stability or rhythm at all. So after 2 years, Graham Jelly was sacked and Daryl Baldock was coach. And Daryl Baldock, if you'd ever seen Daryl Baldock play footy, was probably one of the most skilled footballers ever. Can
I just jump in there for a sec? I actually played footy with Daryl Baldock one time because he was a friend of my mum. So we had a kick in the backyard one time when I was a kid. He was a lovely guy. And very skillful even then.
Just say you played footy with Daryl Baldock. That's what you need to say, mate.
I was 10, he was 60, but close enough.
Well, let me tell you, he was a great footballer. He was a shocking coach. Again, he was the most abusive. Wow. So intolerant of anyone that didn't have the same skill level as him. So, and that was me, right? Like I got through on I was about luck, right? Like, and I'm proud of it. I worked hard. Didn't have massive skills. So I played a few games that year, but I ended up in the resis for most of the year. This is 1987. Last game of 1987 was a grand final. I played in a reserves grand final at the MCG, and so, Jez, I can see the G behind you. To actually run out onto the G on grand final day, whether it's a seniors or reserve game, was a pretty special experience. And we didn't win it, tragically, but the experience was incredible. So, as you can imagine, the Saints starved of success in the 80s. They're playing a grand final, so you can imagine the celebrations lasted weeks. So 2 weeks later, so it's a Saturday morning, 2 weeks after that game, and I'd been drinking probably for 2 weeks straight. And I wake up and did my regular reading, which was the sports section of the newspaper. That was pretty much it back then. Way a long time before I was an author, that's for sure. And I'm looking through the sports section, and then I saw my name. And I'm thinking, because when you see your name, you don't even know what the context is. You just I laser focused in, and I looked, and I was on a list of delisted footballers from St Kilda.
So that's how you found out.
That's how I found out. So my last game was a grand final, and no one called me. No one told me. I read it in the newspaper.
Whoa.
And what happened after that? Did you I assume you have to go back into the club and everything?
Yeah, they heard from me. They heard from me, and I sort of regret probably what I said at the time. But at the time, again, I was like 23 years old, and
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was again just I felt angry. I was resentful. I was bitter, and so they heard about it. So probably destroyed any chances of ever getting back there. But that was it, and that was yeah. I look great again. I'm grateful for all these experiences. I mean, I think what of the anger was there, no doubt. There was definitely resentment, but probably one of the prevailing emotion was relief. I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness, because it was stressful and it wasn't fun. I wasn't enjoying it. It was horrible. You lived in fear of being abused. We were getting smashed every week. The seniors, we won about 7 wooden spoons in the 80s, I think. It wasn't a fun place to be. It really wasn't. It was very toxic. Yeah. But I'm grateful for the blokes, the mates that I made, and the players I played with. Some amazing footballers, some amazing blokes I still sort of see today, 40 plus years later, and it was an awesome experience, and a lot of lessons came out of it.
So a couple of things, one statement and then one question. It's interesting that you're on the list for 7 years, played 24 senior games. In the modern era, that would be incredibly rare for somebody to last on the list for that long, with that number of games. So, I think it was Michael Tuck, wasn't it? Played like 5 years in the reserves before he had his debut, and that just doesn't happen these days anymore. And I just wonder how many talented and hardworking players missed out because they weren't ready at that time. Like you said, you weren't at your first game. I find that really interesting.
Well, I think, again, it's a different time. It's in Kilda, obviously probably struggling at that stage. So they're probably... Look, I think I'd showed enough. I played under 19s for a year. I played reserves, and I played well in the reserves. Like I played, I don't know, I would have played well over 100 games at the club. And I was in and out of the seniors for 4 years. So some outweigh more out than in, but yeah, you're right. And you're right. I just think now it's way more of a business now. And if a player's not productive or producing, then they're a liability, not an asset. And you're right. There's not the development and giving them the opportunity to grow, and they've got to be ready to rock and go hard. And there were footballers like that back in the 80s, and they came in and they did great things, but they were young and they couldn't handle it. And they ended up, you look at all the examples of drugs and alcohol and issues, mental health issues and depression and suicide, and all. Danny Frawley is an example of the pressure that's put on these young people. That's just, they can't handle this pressure. And thankfully, I was never that good that I had that much pressure put on me. I mean...
But that leads in nicely, though, to the next question, which was, how did you adjust to life after footy?
Well, I played footy for another 12 years. I played amateur footy for 12 years. When I left St Kilda, I made a vow, right? I made a vow that I wanted to enjoy it again. I wanted to be playing a successful club. And so I thought, well, I thought, I said to myself, for a year, I'm going to get away from money because, this pressure it's just not fun. And so I thought, I'm going to play amateur footy. I looked at the A grade amateurs at the time, and looked at the club that had won the premiership the year before, and it was a club called Ormond Amateur Footy Club. So get this, I ring the president of the amateur footy. I go to the yellow pages or the white page, whatever, and I find Ormond Amateur Footy Club, and I ring the phone number, and it's the president of the club, and say, hi, my name's Andrew Jobling. I'm wondering if I can come and have a game. And it was like dead silent for about 10 seconds. I go, hello, you there? He said, yeah, I am, but this is a pretty unusual request, because Ormond's is a St Kilda area, so I mean they knew who I was. Yeah. And I don't think many VFL or AFL footballers had ever rung them and asked to come and have a game. I didn't know anyone at the club. I just thought, I want to win a premiership. So
he hadn't read the newspaper to see that you'd been delisted.
Exactly right. Exactly. He didn't see that bit in the newspaper. So So I went, 1980, that was 88. I went and played 1 year. I was going to be there 1 year, played, had a great time, won a premiership, and then I stayed there for another 11 years.
Wow, that's
and,
awesome.
And won a few premierships and captained the club and all Australian and state rep and just had a ball. Got back to, the reason why I played footy in the first place was because it was fun.
I love it. And then your journey from then has been a bit of an interesting one, from AFL or VFL player to where you are now. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, me and Jez know, but tell all the people listening.
Okay, people. Look, and I think the lesson again is anything's possible. Here's the message: anything is possible if you just set your mind and you make a decision and you work. I mean, my footy career is 100% an example of just saying, right, I'm going to do this and do what's required, and it's going to hurt a lot, but do it. So after my footy career, I got into fitness, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I got into the fitness industry. I thought, here's my theory was, for 7 years, the word that I would use to describe my professional sporting career was pain. That would be the word, painful in many, many respects. I thought, right, I'm going to be a personal trainer. I'm going to hurt people, and then they're going to pay me. I thought, it's payback time. So it's we're laughing, but this was me. Like, I was still 25, 26 years old, so I was clueless. So here's me, go on, get up, don't be soft. All this sort
drill
of stuff.
sergeant.
Give me there, give me some money. And so after a while of them getting injured and then cancelling and not showing up, I thought maybe I better change my way. So I started to evolve into quite a good personal trainer. But again, I had work ethic. I was a hard worker. I was not a smart worker. I was a hard worker and just thought hard work was the answer. Ended up working 80 hours a week as a personal trainer for 10, 11, 12 years. And then I got sick. I got sick of the hours. I got sick of 5 a.m. starts and 9 p.m. finishes. And I got sick of income up and down and instability. So I then made another one of my random decisions, and that was to buy a cafe because I'd learned a bit about nutrition. So I thought, well, I'm only working 80 hours a week as a PT. I can surely do more. So I bought a cafe and ended up working over 100 hours a week in 2 businesses for 2 years, ended up in $100,000 debt. Right, so here am I now. After 2 years of trying to combine 2 businesses, cafe's now failing miserably, and I'm just in the deepest, darkest. I was at this point ready to run out onto Brighton Road in front of a tram and go, finish me, because I was over it. And but again, you look back, this is over 20 years ago now, and I look back and think I'm so grateful for that moment, because as I sat there in this dark place, this debt, I just had no idea what to do. I thought, I've worked hard, I've given everything, I've given my life to the sacrifice of most other things in my life, and I'm now in debt and I've got no life. And I just started thinking about my life, and I thought, I don't like this. I don't like it. And then it's interesting, I asked myself a question, a really profound question that I'd never asked before, because the question is normally, what are you going to do now? And I thought, I'm not going to ask that question, because the what do I want to do question's got me here. And I thought, okay. I said, Andrew, how do you want to live? I'm thinking about, I just wanted to have time and money, and I wanted to be impacting lives, and I wanted to love my life. And in that moment, and out of nowhere, right? And this is totally, and this is why I love this story, because out of nowhere, the first time I'd ever had this thought was write a book. Write a book. I'm thinking, how can I write a book? I'm a footballer. Footballers don't write; they grunt. I had no time. I had no skills or experience. English was my worst subject. I didn't read. I didn't write. There's nothing that would indicate that writing a book was a smart idea. But for some reason, that vision that I had, so I started to visualize that life. The thought came, well, if you write a best-selling book, you'll have it. I'm thinking, okay, let's go. Off I go. And honestly, and this is not a word of a lie, that day I started. No idea what I was doing. And I just thought, okay, well, surely I can work this out. I knew what I wanted to write about, because I've learned a lot about nutrition, and I've learned a lot about helping people, and learned a lot about different things. So off I went, a couple of, just little pockets of time every day. And over the next couple of years, I wrote and published my first book, and that ended up selling a lot. And that just unlocked this whole new life that I never thought about, never knew existed. And that's now been, that was 2004 that I published my first book. I've now written 8. I've got 2 more coming this year, and as you know, Wally, we've had some cool stuff together. We did a retreat in Bali for writers in 2023. I do corporate speaking and school speaking. I've got my podcast is now getting towards 300 episodes, and I mentor authors. I still do some wellness stuff, but I love my life, and I look back and I think the really key lesson is those lessons I learned as a teenager in my pursuit of being a professional athlete have really helped me. The resilience, the persistence, the just the willing just to go, even though it hurts, has helped me in every area of my life.
Got to make sure my son listens to all of this because he's keen to make it to the AFL. So he'll make sure that he listens to this episode. You got some gold nuggets in there.
Yeah, well, it's definitely. Look, I think too many people talk themselves out of stuff. Thankfully, I'm not an overthinker. If anything, I'm an underthinker, and I'm very spontaneous, and I'll do it. And I think that would be if anyone's listening, that whether or not it's to play AFL footy or whatever it is, don't overthink it, for goodness sake. If you've got an idea, go. Just go. You'll work it out. You don't have to have the answers. And unfortunately, so many people feel like they've got to know. They've got to be strong enough, big enough, smart enough. They've got to have all the answers and all be totally equipped before they get started. Trust me, you won't get started if that's what you feel like is required, because you won't have it, right? You don't have the answers when you get started. The answers come as you get started. The answers come as you go. Every step along the way unlocks the next answer. If you don't start, you won't know what to do. So stop thinking and start doing would be my greatest piece of advice for anyone listening.
It's so true. And because a lot of people will be like, oh, I'll write a book when I've got more time. I'll write a book when I've got this, or I'll write a book when the kids have left home. And there's always another when that comes into it. So absolutely. And I mean, your great advice that you give a lot of people is just get the book out. Like, to start with, just get the book out, write one word, and and then the next day do it again, and do that for the more days you do that straight. You won't just write one word, you'll write a lot more. So just get it out, just get started is such great advice.
It is. That is good advice, Wally. Good on you.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Learn it from a great man.
Well, I sit here with 8 books, and I think, Wally, you've got 3 million books. I know. How many books? What are you up to now?
I've done 180 now. So yeah, but the
it makes my 8 pale into insignificance, really, doesn't it?
Well, the quality of those 180 is just below the quality of your 8, so it's still pretty even.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great. And it's interesting listening to you talk about things you went through with footy and the hard work of it and the anger and the pain you had through not reaching that goal you wanted, then getting it and all these things, and then finding out you delisted and having these hard moments with the training and the cafe. But all those led to you doing this and to
Absolutely.
This amazing life you've created now. And similar with me, where all those moments of rejections, almost same thing. I almost failed year 12 English at school as well. I did engineering and I failed at that, and I was hating it, and I worked at it. I ended up passing and worked at it. But all of that, I wasn't ready to write back then. If I'd have written back when I was 18, 20 and got rejected, I would have just quit. And so taking that break and doing it, the things that seem terrible at the time are often the things that lead to the great things later. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've got a question for you two.
Ooh.
Do you really want to run the AFL?
Well, that's why it says we should run the AFL, not that we wanna.
And then the follow-up question is why?
You want to go first, Wally, or?
Nah, it's all yours.
I think it's more like, I think we'd love to have a crack at it for a day. Not necessarily like a long-term thing, but just for a day, and just implement some of the changes that we think would could make something that we think is great even greater.
I agree.
And that's essentially what it is. It's just, we love football, but like anything, it's not perfect. And sometimes we think we have the answers to some of the issues that we identify. Other times we have ideas like Wally came up with last week. That
was so fun. Yeah, out of nowhere.
Fun. But yeah, I think that's that more than anything. But this whole thing really came about just because whenever we catch up, we tend to talk football, and we thought, why don't we just record it, and if anybody wants to listen, great. It's
Well, maybe the AFL's listening and they'll get something from this.
Well,
Do you
that's
think?
the thing. Hope so. And we
You
used
could
to talk
send
about
this
that
to
as
the
well.
AFL.
Yeah, and we used to talk. I mean, we're in the future, we're hoping to get some people from the AFL on and chat to them. But we'd talk about how, again, being Collingwood supporters back when Collingwood wasn't doing great, it's like Bucks should just go down to the pub, chat to a couple of, local footy supporters, have ideas that like we have and say, well, why do you do this and why don't you do this? And just try a couple, because what they were doing wasn't, St Kilda in the 80s, same thing. Chat to some people down the pub and say, what should we do? They would have ideas. And it's like, well, why not try some?
I think that's a great idea. I don't think any of the St Kilda coaches had an ego that would allow them to go and ask anyone else for help, because they think they had all the answers. They couldn't win a game of footy, but they had all the answers.
They might have been at the pub though. So. All right. Well, sorry, you go, Jez.
Okay, should we move on to love hate?
Yeah, love hate. I reckon. Yeah, we'll wind it up.
All right.
Love it, hate it.
All right. So, jobbers, we do a bit of a segment called Love It, Hate It. So we were wondering what your favourite thing about Aussie rules football is, and also your least favourite. So what do you love about football, basically, and what do you hate about football?
Okay. I love the competition. I love the achievement. I love I love watching a grand final. Like, I honestly don't watch a lot of footy, and I know this is heartbreaking for you guys and for people going, well, what are you on this show for then? Well, because they asked me to, and I said yes. But I don't watch a lot of it anymore. It's just so different to back in the 80s. My gosh, I went to a game last year at Marvel Stadium. The roof, and it wasn't raining, but the roof was on. The grass is like flipping carpet, and I think I just love to see you guys play at Moorabbin.
The mud pile.
Back in the 80s when it was a swamp. Now we'll see. Like there was no wind, the carpet. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, it's just got a bit soft, I'd have to say. But what I love about it, I love watching the achievement and the hard work and the atmosphere. There's a lot of stuff about it I love. What I don't like, and I'm going to get a bit political right now. The thing that even last year I was, it really agitated me is that the AFL for so many years have used McDonald's has had McDonald's as a sponsor and are encouraging, the whole image is perpetuating that, the AFL footballers eat Maccas and it's good. And on my concern is what effect that's having on young people that are aspiring to be athletes and saying, well, my favourite player eats Maccas, so I can eat Maccas. And, I think that I reckon they could find a better sponsor. I reckon they could find a more suitable sponsor that would love to invest in the sport. Yet it's just McDonald's year after year after year after, and it's not just footy. I mean, cricket's the same with KFC, and it's just such a damaging image that's been portrayed with these ads. That's the thing about it. It's turned into such a business, and it's all about profit and it's all about money, that a lot of the ethical things we've lost. And how players are treated, we were saying before, Jez, they're not getting a chance to grow or to develop. If you're not performing, you're out. And so it's a bit too cutthroat, it's a bit too business-like, it's a bit too corporate these days, and that's one of the reasons I just think I'm into people. I love people. I love the achievement, but I love nurturing people and building people, not judging people, and not like the ones that are great. They put up on this pedestal and they're sort of almost beyond the law, and then you've got the other battlers that are just no one seems to care about. I think it's a bit of a elitist kind of thing. So there's a few things there.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, those battlers, we need the battlers as well to be there too, or the elite ones have got nothing to sort of stand on as well. Not stand on in a bad way, treat them down, but yeah, that makes up the whole team. And you're right with the McDonald's, and there's also a lot of gambling around footy as well. And I mean, we're the last question we were going to ask was, Is there anything you'd like to remove? But I think we've sort of covered that in terms of all the sponsorship and everything. And in terms of why we had you on, Jobbers, I mean, I think anyone listening to it today will found out why I wanted you on, because what you do now is amazing. You're inspirational, and the journey you've taken has been pretty amazing. So that's why we had you on, and that's why we should run the AFL.
You should run the AFL. I now agree with you both. No,
Right,
it's been awesome, guys.
right.
I really appreciate it. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks heaps, Jobbers. Thanks, Jez.
Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks, Wally.